What is up, swimmers and swammers? Welcome back to the SwimSwam Breakdown. As always, I'm your host, Coleman Hodges, coming to you from Brooklyn, New York, joined by the swim scribe himself, David Classie from St. Cloud, Minnesota. I know we have one holiday and Thanksgiving coming up this week, but if you're a college swimming fan, we just celebrated another holiday last weekend in NCAA mid-season week. David, how was your swimming holiday this past weekend?
Busy. There's so many top talent, fast swims, and a bunch of different midseason meets. And of course, they're all kind of staggered out a little bit. So some are starting earlier in the week, some are starting later in the week. And so which is kind of nice in some ways because you just got to remind yourself, oh, where's this meet at in the schedule as they go through. But it was a good mix of teams, a lot of fast swimming. And of course, we also have that one unique meet from the dual meet tournament, which is as a midseason meet's pretty cool. But it was definitely a nice week one of midseason meets. There's of course, we're gonna have a few more rounds to go through as the other top schools kind of throw down their times to match what we saw a lot of fast swimming happen this week. And it'll be interesting to see in a couple weeks time how the NCAA as a whole is looking at the top end.
Yeah, it really will. It was a crazy week. It felt like a conference meet week, really, and specifically that first week of conference meets where you have ACCs, SECs, and then women's Big Tens, where it starts on a Tuesday and then goes through a Saturday. Yeah. And this was even started on Tuesday, went through a Sunday with the aforementioned CSCAA dual meet challenge. But it was pretty wild seeing the miles on day one and then seeing all the meets kind of converge and coalesce as the week went through. And then, like on the Sunday, you just had, I guess, two of the final dual meets for third and first at the dual meet tournament, which, we'll get into that later, but a lot of swimming this weekend. And that's not even what we're starting with today, because that is not the biggest news of the day. We didn't even talk about it on our breakdown last week, where Nicole joined me instead of David, but Audrey Derivaux, our top recruit in the women's class of 2027, committed to Texas. And just this morning, we had Rylee Erisman, our number 2, and really, sometimes there's a clear number 1. I feel like in this class, especially with their different skill sets, it's like a 1A, 1B situation. They could flip-flop at any point. But Rylee Erisman committed to Cal and also announced she's reclassifying for the class of 2026. So she will arrive in Berkeley this coming fall of 2026 and will assumably, compete in the 2027 championship season. So that is huge news. And honestly, we've kind of already seen a shift in the NCAA landscape, especially on the women's side. And you and I, David, have talked about this in previous breakdowns, but this is fairly monumental. This is like, tectonic plates are shifting to see these two really big name recruits not only diverge to Texas and Cal, and specifically not UVA, who are the 5-time defending women's champions, but also to see Rylee reclassify to 2026. So just what are your initial thoughts on these two huge commitments from Miss Derivaux and Miss Erisman?
Yeah, it's funny when you sent over the email with the topics. I saw Erisman. I went, "Oh, I must have missed that." Look at, the article is 15 minutes old at this time. Oh, okay. I didn't just live under a rock there. It's a pretty new story, and that's obviously the fact that she's reclassifying to be there. Hopefully competing at the championships a year earlier is pretty huge. Erisman is obviously an insane pickup, not just because she's so fast, but also because of her event specialization. Really good at that sprint freestyle, which is, very, very impactful at the NCAA level. Audrey Derivaux also should be a really big impact when she arrives a year after. And I think overall, the, like you mentioned, kind of shifting of the NCAA landscape on the women's side, I think is really exciting just because these are two powerhouse recruits going to two different schools that are not at whatever year point, however many times, defending NCAA champion Virginia. And I love nothing more than a competitive NCAA meet. I hate it when it's as cool as it is, I will admit, to watch a team beat the brakes off of everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
It is an awesome flex for UVA to show up on day one and be like, yeah, everyone else is going for second place, and it feels like, men's
We're
side
100
is
points in the lead.
shifting to Texas is going to be doing
Yeah.
that because they seem to
Yeah.
be really good at consolidating talent right now with their recruiting. It's
No
cool
kidding.
to see a diversification of that. Like one of my favorite NCAAs from a team race perspective was 2018 men's NCAAs because the amount of times where, obviously Cal and Texas were the front runners, but then at one point, like Florida was leading after a day or after some events. Indiana kept having
was in the
big
mix.
moves too. Like
Yeah.
those four, and like I think NC State was playing like a good spoiler at that point too, because I think they
Mm-hmm.
were like on some crazy relays too, and like they were just
Definitely
taking bites out of leads. Like that was such a dynamic NCAA. I always hate when it's the the second event on the a couple events into the final night, and it's okay, mathematically this team has now won. They could DQ every single event and they would still win by 2 points. I like seeing this diversification of talent at the top level, seeing these top recruits go to other schools. And I'm hoping that down the road, that's going to line up. That's going to time out very nicely to see a couple of really competitive NCAA meets. And these, also hopefully means some great things for, their international careers going forward. I wonder if that's part of the driving decision making for reclassifying and graduating a year early so we can get some more time under a new coach. If you're pointing towards LA, obviously for Luka Mijatović's commitment, that was a lot of discussion, was the timing of switching to a new coach that soon before an Olympics. Get an extra year, if there's a year adjustment period, kind of knock that out a year earlier and you have a couple of years to go in there. So there obviously could be a myriad of other reasons why you want to do that, but that's a positive reason to reclassify like that as well.
No, absolutely. And I hadn't even considered that piece of it just because the news is so fresh and I'm still like, whoa, NCAA landscape. It's like, bro. But yeah, no, that's a great point. Now Rylee will have 2 full years at Cal to adjust to the training at Cal with the coaches, with the teammates. Obviously, just adjusting to college life it is a huge change, especially, again, I think any college adjustment is a big one, but Berkeley is really its own beast in its own place. And I feel like, being there for 2 years in the lead up to LA 2028 is probably a pro for Rylee. And that was probably a big consideration that she had when making this decision. So congrats to her. Congrats to Audrey for choosing Texas. And I think it's going to be really exciting now with the class on the women's side, the class that Tennessee is bringing in, the class that Texas will bring in for the next 2 years, really. Now the class that Cal is bringing in. And then you also have the Stanford women who look stellar. And I'll be really interested to see how they're looking in the next year or two after not having Lucy Bell, Caroline Bricker, and Tori Husk specifically. But then you also have the UVA women who will also lose some big pieces after this season, but are still going to have an arsenal of really talented women. So like you said, David, I feel like not this year, but the next couple years at NCAA's we could see some real barn burners. And I think for swimming fans everywhere, that would be awesome. And just if you don't know, we haven't even mentioned this, perhaps one deciding factor for Rylee Erisman to go to Cal. Her brother, Ryan Erisman, is currently a freshman at Cal. He is kicking butt. He's having a great season with Cal so far. Did a podcast with the mid-D and distance coach there, Noah Yanchulas, who is on the World Championship staff this summer. If you didn't watch that or listen to that, you can go listen to that. He talks about the distance group, and which Ryan Erisman trains with a lot. He had some really fun stuff to say, but yeah, Ryan Erisman having a great season at Cal. So Rylee is now going to go join her brother and overlap with him for 3 seasons now, I guess. So could have been another factor, but yeah, wow. NCAA women looking exciting. Things are going to really heat up, which, yeah, not sure I can quite say that about the men at this point, but those are some really, really big news and really big commitments. And it's kind of exciting to know that, again, we'll see Rylee in less than a year swimming in college, but that these commitments are kind of coming out so soon, in the fall of their junior seasons. Obviously, Rylee, it's now her senior season, but I'm glad we get to know and glad we get to have so much time to just guess over what's going to happen and how it's going to look. All right. So with that, let's talk about the college swimming we have actually seen. Mid-season meet Roundup. There was a lot of impressive swims, some unofficial NCAA records, one official NCAA record, one official American record. A lot of fast swims across the board. The fastest mid-season meet week I think we've ever seen, hands down. David, just give me your most impressive swims. What stuck out to you the most? What swims do you just have to highlight and be like, listen, people, if you were under a rock, this is what you need to know?
Yeah, obviously on the men's side, you got to start out with the official NCAA record. Luca Orlando clipped his insane time from NCAA's last season by 2/100ths with a 1:36.41 in the 200 butterfly. Yeah. Takes down his NCAA record, and he was really good at going his fastest at NCAA championships last season. And so that hopefully coupled with the very strong summer season that he had, going under 152 in the long course 200 butterfly to win the only American men individual gold medal at that at those worlds. He's still continuing on a very good trajectory, very exciting there. Will Modulin, Texas, American record in the 100 back, current top time in the NCAA this season, and he still is going to need to fight Texas Longhorn, who will be returning for the next semester, Hubert Koch, who's not on the roster right now, which is just insane to think of. Talking about consolidation of talent, right, on the men's side, all in Texas right now. Not all of it, but a big chunk of it. And he also just had to tease us with that lead off on the 200 medley relay, 20.00. Just no one wants to. He wanted to do it at NCAA's. That's what it is. He didn't want to do it at mid-season. He saw the scoreboard. I know backstrokers always admit to peaking, so he's kind of, okay, I'm good.
Right.
If you could do that going 20-point pace, that'd be impressive.
I saw reactions to it before I saw the time, and so I was like, someone finally went 19. Like, this is crazy. And then I clicked and saw the time, and I was like, dude, okay. This is how it's gonna be. Just so elusive. Go ahead.
We also saw some really good, looks like just setting the stage for some potentially epic battles in other distances too. Like the fact that I love the fact, looking at the top ranks in the 50 free right now, at two different meets, we now have Josh Liendo and Ilya Haroun tied with 18.4s, and then Guy Karib right behind an 18.47. He is also the only swimmer so far under 41 seconds, going a 40.91.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy to me, and I know this is like a while ago, but in 2014, 18.9 won NCAAs. And so I know it's 11 years ago, it's over a decade, but I remember a time when 18.9 won NCAAs. In November, 15 men have gone 18.9 or better. Like, it's like that we could nearly field the A and non-existent B finals of the 50 free. Everyone would score with 18.9 right now. It's nuts. The depth is insane, but sorry, David, go ahead.
Yeah, that is something that's just been getting increasingly deep, is that 50 free field in general. So I feel like track times in the 100 meter, where it's all just like getting to the point where I'm just gonna be separated by hundredths. One name that stood out, he was going through results, ASU Remy Fabiani, who's currently at the top of the rankings in the 200 free with a 1:31.23, and he's also the one right behind Karib, almost under that 41 second barrier with 41.10.
Yeah. Which, once again, 21 men have been under 42 seconds. You think you're cool if you go a 41 in the 100 free? Maybe think again, because good God, that there's just so much depth in this event now. I mean, just 41s everywhere, left, right. Again, you don't even score at NCAAs right now in November if you've gone a 41 in the 100 free. You really have to do it to stand out. And to your point, again, in the 200 free, 131.2 is the top rank, Remy Fabiani. 9 men have been under 132, have been 131. It's again, just it was not long ago that 132.9 made the A final. I think that was 2019 or 2018. 26 men have been under 133. 26.
That's stupid.
Yeah. So it's just like no Luke Hobson in the 200 free. No problem. No Kieran Smith or Grant House or Drew Kibler, like these mainstays who've won NCAA titles or been in that top 3 in that event specifically. Like we've got these guys are just really stepping up. So very impressive on that front.
Yeah. And I do think that perhaps the most impressive 100-200 freestyle combination we saw was over on the women's side with UVA's Anna Mosch going a 45.98 in the 100 free and a 140.25 in the 200 free. Just to dominate the rankings across those events. And that's also, I think, bumps her up pretty high into the all-time rankings as well.
Yeah. And so David, I'm curious about this. When I put together SwimSwam's top 5 swims of the entire weekend, I did include 2 relay splits, Will Modglin's 50 back, 20.00, and Ilya Karun's 50 fly, 18.68, the fastest, both of which are the fastest 50 splits of all time. My number 5 swim was Nate Germonprez's 49.71 100 breast. And I did get a couple comments giving me some guff being like, these are all men. Where are the women's swims? And I'm like, listen, I think the top 5 swims all came from men. I'm not trying to play favorites for schools or for gender. And I think Anna Mosch might have the best argument with those 100, 200 free swims. Do you think that that either of those swims tops Nate's 49.71 100 breast?
I think there's an argument that can be made. I would put 49.71 above just because that is closer to the NCAA record. If we're going off of that, that feels like the fairest kind of, that's knocking on the door. And it's also,
I think they're about similar in terms of all-time performers where they sit on the list, but it's like, it's 2/10 away from the fastest time ever.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess you could argue that there's just too, in the 100 free specifically, Gretchen Walsh is just too much of an outlier. That could skew it a little bit, if someone that was an equal amount of an outlier came and swam a stupid, a 48 something in the 100 breast, that maybe, but that didn't happen. So if we're framing against what the actual records are, and not trying to, figure out p-values for the outliers and stuff like that, then I would say that's a fair ranking of it. But it's one of those where there's definitely a very solid argument either way.
Yeah. No, yeah. And I'm not trying to discredit any of the women's swims from this weekend. We saw some incredible swims. I mean, I think one thing is that right now, on the women's side specifically, we just had an immense amount of talent leave the NCAA, and specifically talent that has not only won NCAA titles and done freakish things in yards, but has also performed on the international stage. And so they get a lot of attention. They bring a lot of eyes to the sport, but they're also just doing crazy things during the season and set really high standards. But, Tori Husk, who also falls into that category, and I would say is maybe the best woman in NCAA swimming right now. 21:01 50 free, 46:1 100 free, something crazy 48:9 in the 100 fly. I mean, she really showed out. And those are all great swims, but again, she's kind of running into the same problem as some of these other women, is that Gretchen Walsh sets such ridiculously high standards in those events that it's like, well, while these are very good swims and top ranking swims, it's like they are not records, and honestly, they're not particularly close to records. So, what are you gonna do?
One of event that is looking super stacked after this, the women's backstrokes. Claire Curzon and Bella Sims, 49:12 and 49:17. This one was at the same meet. In the 100 back, and then also in that 200 back.
And it was in the same race, right?
Yes,
I think
those two were
missing each other during that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then again in the backstroke, Claire Curzon's also at the top, as you would expect her in the 200 back, 147.89. And then in second, Wisconsin's Maggie Wanizek, who we were just talking about a couple weeks ago for going, I think, a personal best or a season best, very fast time during a regular dual meet, 50 point. And then part of that was, it's also mentioned in the article about that swim, was the fact that, she went that similar time at whatever equivalent dual meet, didn't go faster. And I guess she took that personally from last season. Because then she also went a huge personal best in the 200 backstroke. She's currently second with a 148.39. Her old personal best was last year's midseason 150.6. And then she also that personal best from Minnesota versus Wisconsin, 50.3 in November 7th, and then goes at 49.95.
First time under 50. Yeah.
Yes.
So no, she had a great season. And we saw the Claire Curzon Bella Sims battle in the battle of the backstrokes last year at NCAA's, and it both races were barn burners, especially the 100. Claire Curzon got her hand on the wall first in both of them. She got her hand on the wall this time. I'm wondering if this is going to be a theme, if we're going to see, Bella make a bounce back or, touch Claire out in any of these races. We won't see them. I'm guessing we won't see them race again until NCAA's, but we'll see if their times progress throughout January and February. And it's exciting to see that outside of Curzon and Sims, we have some women who are looking really sharp. There were 5 women all under the 150 mark in the 200 back. Including the NC State duo of Erica Pillais and Leah Shackley, as well as Indiana's Miranda Grana, all of whom are looking really good. And then in the 100, you have 9 women who have been under 50 point, including Mina Abraham, who I know is like 100, 200, 500 freestyler. I guess she led off USC's medley relay in 50.9. So there's that. But a lot of depth in that women's backstroke, which is always really exciting. And 4 women already under the 50 point mark in the 100 as well, including Wanizek, Grana, and then Sims and Curzon. So it's going to be good. We can't talk about every fast swim, obviously. These are just some of the highlights, but I do want to talk about a few of the meet formats because we did see some very new things. We've talked about the CSCAA dual meet tournament, which was a whole new format. It was 3 days. You had 2 dual meets. There was 4 teams. If you didn't know this, 1 from each of the Power 4 conferences: Tennessee from the SEC, Michigan from the Big 10, ASU from the Big 12, and Virginia from the ACC. And so each school had 2 dual meets on the first day. There were 3 dual meets on the second day, so each school had 1, and then 2 of the schools had 2, and that was Michigan and I think it was different for the men and the women. And then on the last day, each school had one, and each team had one, and that was for first and for third place. It was an interesting format. There was a lot of fast swimming. There was a lot of opportunities for racing. I'm curious your thoughts, David, on the format. Personally, I feel like it could have been a little barred down just because by the time we got to Sunday, by the time we got to the championship duels, we had already seen these matchups happen before, and the team results were the same as the first time around. But also, I think you could tell there was a bit of fatigue, just because there had already been the same events swam, and these athletes had raced a lot. And I'm sure that was the point. But also, it's like, I don't know if this is super conducive to fan-friendly swimming when you have the same matchups, the same results, and the same events being swum, but they're just slower than they were on the first day for the most part. But what did you think of this meet, David?
Yeah, so there's some I liked and some I disliked, which I feel like this definitely seems like a testing of the waters of a kind of dual meet style format. So that is probably to be expected, right? Some good, some bad. What do we want to keep for, try and preserve going forward? What do we need to tweak and change and stuff like that? So I feel like that is an important thing to consider when looking at the results of it. Overall, my biggest thing that I liked about is the fact that it happened, right? The fact that we had a dual meet tournament format at as a mid-season meet where people are not only trying out this new format, but also swimming fast at it. That is super cool. That's super unique. I think the tournament structure of it probably should be tweaked. Probably should be more of a round robin style, because the fact you had two teams, that there's however many meets and only 4 teams and 2 teams never race each other. It's a little silly. That's less of a swimming specific thing, though. That's just a tournament format thing. That's not a complication that is made unique by the fact we're talking about a swim meet. That's something that you can experiment with as easy as possible. One thing that I was not a huge fan of was the way the points worked, because they did a
totally
unique
different
twist on
scoring
it.
system.
I believe because it was still raced as one heat, right? It was just based on the lane assignments for the head-to-head matchup. So then you have, based on the lane assignments, a head-to-head matchup, three head-to-head matchups for each one. Each winner scores a point, and then I believe the fastest time overall also scores a point. So like the top swimmer basically scores 2 points, and then there's 2 other 1 points.
3 swimmers for each team, and then each pair of 2, one from one school, one from the other. Yeah, like you said, there's a head-to-head matchup. Each winner of that head-to-head matchup gets 1 point, and then, as you said, the fastest time overall gets an additional point.
Yeah. So the couple of issues I have, one is just I feel like we're maybe changing a few too many things in one fell swoop by trying this new format, like that. We don't also need to tweak the scoring, or at least to that degree. I also think that, and this is less of an issue of the format, more of just the context that exists in the swimming world. A lot of the way results are formatted just don't work very well for that, because no meet result, Meet Mobile or Swim Cloud, or even just like the Omega timing don't format results like that for you. So it's, and the fact that the easiest way to follow along with the actual score is basically exclusively through the SwimSwam live updates. Because the writers for each of those articles are doing a great job of putting the asterisks next to this swimmer that won the head-to-head matchup, keeping the running totals. The fact
Which I don't hate that.
Fantastic for SwimSwam. But when you're thinking about as if that didn't exist, following the scoring of this seems insane. I don't know how, I didn't get a chance to watch this. I don't know how clear it was on any kind of live stream broadcast, stuff like that, but I feel like that'd just be difficult to kind of convey consistently. I don't know. I could see maybe the fact that it would potentially make the scores a little bit more dynamic, a little more room for some swimmers to have, incredible swims and, pick up a point, here and here and here on like those kind of like second tier matchups. I feel like the easier way to do that, though, is to just because the traditional dual meet format scoring is 9, 4, 3, 2, 1. I don't know if this is the case in all high school levels, but at least in Minnesota, what I was familiar with in high school, it was basically the exact same, except it was 6, 4, 3, 2, 1. I would just shift it to that, because what I like about that, the way the math works out, is that if you go 1 and 5, you actually lose the event. So
Okay.
you can go 2, 3, 4, pick up, so they could have some stub. If you have enough depth, you can actually win the event. Or if you go 2, 3, 5, you actually tie. So I think that
Ooh.
could maybe, if that was their goal to try and keep, because sometimes
And
swimming
there's
feels a
also
little
more
too solved.
points. Like more points, I feel like is just better. It's more exciting.
My main issue, aside from being a little hard to follow along with the score, without the and also I'm sure the Writers of Life our recap articles, there are got enough to do. The fact they also need to keep track of the points in like a very different system, and also be like, how I know this because I'm writing this for the third meet now. But if someone's just tuned in here, how can I convey this to them cleanly? Which they managed to figure out very well, because I was very thankful for it, keeping up on results, because I would have been totally lost. But you also come into this scenario where you could potentially have the second fastest swimmer in an event scoring 0 points, and then the third and fourth fastest swimmers are scoring 1 point. Because unless you are being strategic with your lane assignments of the swimmers, which is kind of a cool strategy element to add. I don't know how entertaining that is for a viewer, though, for the fact that the swim coaches are basically playing an RTS of like, okay, now I need to put my swimmer over here in lane 8, so that way they can pick up a point here. They might be the fastest get 2, but they're definitely not going to be here. But wait, what if they know I'm going to do it and they're going to try and put their swimmer here? That could be interesting to watch if we had a camera on them doing that, but we're never going to do that. And it just feels like a little too much being changed at once. I don't know a huge amount of value added to it. My guess is they want to try and keep the scores a little bit tighter to leave room for upsets, because sometimes, swimming just feels a little too solved. It's obviously that this team's going to win these events because that 9-4-3-2-1 format in normal dual meets super heavily favors winning events, because the best you can do if if the other team goes 1 and 5 is they only win the event by 1 point. There's actually no way without winning the event to score more points. So I kind of like with the winning time, when the first place only being 6 points actually does open the door for depth to kind of prevail a little bit, which is something that we do see at like championship meets too.
Yeah. I mean, the example of that pops out to me is the Ohio State women for the last 4 of the last 5 years, something like that. They've won a lot of Big Ten conference team titles because of, not necessarily because of their top end speed, but because of their depth. And we, again, like you said, we can see that play out at conference championships, not always necessarily in dual meets. You have sold me on the 6-4-3-2-1 scoring format. I didn't mind the scoring format of this meet, just as a fan's perspective, although it did take me a while to figure it out. I kept seeing the asterisks in our live results, and I was like, what does this mean? I don't know. What,
I actually had to read the article. What's this?
Yeah. I don't want to read the article. I just want to know what the scoring is. But especially when you said the second fastest swimmer could not score points, then it's kind of like, oh yeah, I don't love that.
It just like feels wrong. It feels a little wrong that that's possible.
Yeah. And especially when, I love when it's about scoring, but it's also a time-based sport. So it's like when the second best time, obviously it counts as a time for NCAA qualification, etc. But it's like, oh, it doesn't warrant any merit in this format. Like that does seem odd. So again, I'm with you. I love that they tried something new. And now that we've seen it, I do feel like there are tweaks to be made. But overall, I think it was a fun format for especially a mid-season meet, right? Where there's not a lot of stakes, but there's still a lot of fast swimming. It's not like if they did this for a conference championship, I think it would be way differently received. But the fact that they did this as opposed to like a mid-season invite, I really liked that. And I thought it was a fun format. So hopefully we will see more meets like this in the future and see if they do make tweaks or changes to the formatting of it. We also, at all the quote unquote normal mid-season invites, we saw a lot of the meets use the new NCAA event lineup. So mile was day one, along with the 2 medley relay and 8 free relay. And then the next 3 days were the new event schedule, which is pretty significantly different from the old NCAA schedule. After just seeing this first iteration or this new NCAA lineup in action, did you like it, David? Did you dislike it? Did you hate it?
Okay. I think I mostly followed along with that. I don't know if it's your internet or my internet. Is a little bit of robot, then freeze, then speed up there. I mostly kept track though. We're on the NCAA event lineup, following it on.
Yes.
I could hear because it then would super speed what you're saying. I'm like, okay, I think I got that, and I got the question at the end. Yeah, I was more. Not your fault unless you work for whatever your ISP is. Do you? But I was more or less indifferent to it, just because I feel like I mostly just hold the same opinion that I had about the event lineup change in general at the NCAA championships. I think, quite honestly, I would like to see if we maybe just change the event lineup a little bit more.
Agreed.
We do that at the world championships, Olympics, stuff like that. I think, for example, moving the mile to day one, probably it might suck for the distance swimmers, but I feel like that might be kind of your own preference for stuff like that, but it might lead us to faster. Bobby Fink got to do 1650 day one, might be a little bit faster of a record there. And quite personally, because I swam Division 2, which means I got to swim the 1,000. That's on day one. I loved the 1,000 as my first event, because that is such a nice middle ground. It's not quite as long as 1650, but it's not trying to immediately go into I hated the high school event lineup where my first event had to be a 200 freestyle, because trying to start a meet off like that when I'm just not geared towards that fast twitch pace as much takes me a little bit to get going. So being able to ease into a meet with 1,000, I really liked. There's probably some people that didn't like it though. It's probably the same thing with the 1650 on day one, but I do also, it's just smart for the teams to do this, to mimic the NCAA schedule as best they can, try out the new lineup at mid-season, especially with, hey, what events do you need to swim now? Because some people are going to have weird conflicts and stuff like that. Overall, I think that for the meet lineup in general, I still am indifferent, though I like that there's a change. And I think we should just change it up more often, more as a general principle, because I think that it is a good idea to just try and spread around the events, have more events on day one or day two when swimmers are more fresh, not always have these events on the final day when everyone's gassed, especially back in the day when they had to do prelims of relays too.
Truly. I like that idea of just like, hey, let's have a new NCAA event lineup every year, right? I mean, why not? I don't know. It keeps it fresh. Like, why do we have to do the same thing every time? I know world champs and Olympic schedules are not the same, but they normally stay mostly the same. Although now with the Olympic schedule, it might be changing Olympics to Olympics because they keep adding events or adding days. And so I know that's a bit different, but in terms of just this weekend, I liked having the mile first. It gives those distance swimmers kind of their own platform to shine on. And I think not having the longest event on the last day is a plus. And I think people are already so jazzed about the distance swimming, about the swim meet starting in general, that they're probably going to have a little more excitement for the mile, which I think is a good thing. Similar to you, the new lineup seemed fine. The only qualm I have would be having the 2 fly, 2 back, and 2 IM all on the same day, and it's the last day. I think that's worse than having 2 fly, 2 back, 2 breast all on the last day and the same day, because you have a lot of people who would be doing the 2 fly, 2 back and 2 IM potentially. But I did really like the fact that you had swimmers who could swim 100 fly on one day, 100 back on the next day, and then 2 fly or 2 back the day after that. I really like seeing that split up. Specifically, we got to see people like Luca Orlando do the 100 back now individually, which is really exciting. And hopefully we'll get to see that more at conference and NCAAs. But Yeah, overall, I thought it was fine. Obviously, it's never going to be perfect, but it was nice to see it kind of how it played out. And mile day one, I'm a fan of. Okay, so that's pretty much meet week. I guess then this can kind of meld or mold into our sink or swims. But I'm curious, just David, what do you think this means? This is the fastest November we've ever seen. Midseason, we've already seen NCAA records. We've already seen fastest times ever from relays and individual swims. What do you think this means for January? Do you think people are going to keep getting faster? Do you think there will be a little lull in the times we see from dual meets coming out of January, or do you think teams who were already suiting up for every dual meet pretty much? Do you think people are just going to keep getting faster and faster by the time we hit February 1st?
I think we're probably going to see a little bit of both. But I feel like we're going to see kind of an immediate lull as you get into that really heavy block of December winter training, especially through, like training trips and stuff like that. And then I think because you're selling me on this before we started about just the trajectory that a lot of NCAA times and seasons seem to be on, which is just more of a ramp rather than a that are big U, which I feel like just seeing people get faster and faster and faster also makes a lot of sense. So if you think about mid seasons as a tune up, get some practice at race reps. Okay, what worked, what didn't? Let's go back to the drawing board. Okay, now we've identified these things that you need to change about your start, turn, finish, stroke, whatever, just your general, or hey, now you're a faster swimmer. We should start training like a faster swimmer, especially in like that mid distance world, right? If you were, if you were pacing as a 133 swimmer and now you're a 131 swimmer in the 200 freestyle, well, man, we should have you holding a faster pace when we're doing that kind of race preparation stuff like that. And I do think that coupled with the way NCAA has been trending towards more fast swimming more frequently, and also a lot of teams suiting up more often for dual meets, I feel like we are going to see an increase in speed kind of gently easing up into the conference championships and the NCAAs. I don't think it's going to be a super aggressive ramp up. I think it's going to be from this period after midseason into conference might either be mostly flat with like a slight increase in time as some people tweak some things, or just holding. I feel like we're gonna see a lot more swimmers holding very close to their midseason time, so a lot more than in previous years. We used to be like, okay, midseason and I fell back off a cliff and now I'm back for conference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. which again, I love what this NCAA landscape has become. I love that we just there are fast swims all season, which I think there should be. In many other sports, you still have really exciting games or moments from the sports happening. You still have like events that people are getting really, really excited about, which I don't feel like swimming always had, especially if you look 10 plus years back. But now everyone's just swimming fast all the time. You could see an NCAA record broken at any moment at any dual meet, and that's very much more a possibility. So I think we will see probably what will look like the fastest January of all time after the fastest November of all time, which I'm really excited for. That leads us to our first sink or swim, which is, David, do you think we will see an NCAA record in January this year? We've definitely seen them the past couple of Januaries. Leon Marchand broke one in the 400 IM in 2023, I think. 2025, Luca Orlando broke his 200, the 200 fly, which he then went on to break, I think, one or two more times. But this January, especially after Luca's 136.41, do you think we will see an NCAA record? Oh no, am I gone again?
Oh, there you go. It's being slow and I'm lagging behind on the at super speed. It's been doing that happening the whole time. Hopefully the audio is decent for the listeners, but I'm able to follow along. I'm getting pretty good at it now.
Nice.
I said before we started that I came up with a reason to swim this because originally I was going to sink it for the combination of what I said. I feel like we're going to see a lot of people holding right around midseason, maybe a little bit faster, but not this really aggressive ramp up. And I also think just a lot of NCAA records are maybe too fast now. You know, we've seen the bar just get pushed way into the stratosphere over the last few seasons on both the men's and women's side. We've seen a lot of phenomenal swims, insane athletes come through that just, you know, even if you have someone who's swimming out of their mind, that record is just, you know, 500 free. So if someone goes a 402 in January, that's crazy. You know, that's just an insane record. That'd also be crazy in March. But I'm going to swim it because I remembered, and this is maybe a cheat. I might be cheating here, but if we turn our attention to the oldest NCAA record, Clark Smith's 1,000 free, Ahmed Jowdy was a 8:36.65 in a dual meet. In his first dual meet, I think. At least his first 1,000 of it. He's now one of the fastest swimmers of all time within 3 seconds of that record. He can probably find those 3 seconds in January. I know Florida might be the worst possible example for a team. They're probably going to be one of the exceptions of getting faster up until conference. But this dude is fast, and he's already shown that he is fast, and I think he can produce an 8:33 in the 1,000 free. So I am swimming it specifically for that record. I can't really go the same route for the women's side of things, though, because of who owns that record. I don't think the fact that it's not a championship event is going to be holding that one back too much.
Yeah, which actually, hold on. What is the women's NCAA record? I know it's Katie Ledecky, but it's not her best time. It's still 906.9. which is ridiculous. Her best time is 8:59. But regardless, I'll play devil's advocate. I'm gonna sink it. I do think it will be the fastest January of all time, but I do think teams will. My main reason why is because we don't have, and we were talking about this off camera, we don't have necessarily a marquee dual meet that is going to pit top 3 to 5, multiple top 3 to 5 teams together in one meet that will be the must-see event of January. If you look at the schedule, we've got Texas against Louisville and Ohio State. We've got Virginia versus NC State. I'm sure there are other dual meets that will produce a lot of very fast times, but we don't have that one that we've seen the last few Januaries where it's like, this is can't miss. Absolutely. I'm guessing some combination of Cal, Stanford, and ASU will be dueling as well. But again, those teams aren't quite as equivalent. I remember a couple of years back, the Cal ASU dual meet where the men actually ended up tying, but it's like that meet produced so many top times in the country at the time. That was just like they were trading punches back and forth. It was like, oh my God, this is the moment. And I'm not sure we're going to see that in January. Therefore, I'm sure people are going to swim really fast, but no NCAA record in January. Call me crazy. So we will see how that goes. One more sink or swim. Circling back to our first topic of discussion with the women's NCAA landscape changing. This is not a sink or swim, but more a prediction. What women's team will win an NCAA title first? Stanford, Cal, Texas, and I'm going to throw one more in, or Tennessee?
I was thinking about Tennessee actually when I saw that wasn't on there. I'm like, maybe, but I feel like I'm bad at predicting too far out, so I'm just going to play really far into the recency bias and just say, man, Cal all the way.
I mean,
if nothing else, I'm just going to fall back on the recent hot headline.
Rylee Erisman feels like one of those athletes that could come in and have an immediate impact on a program and really skyrocket them up. And I think that could absolutely happen. I'm gonna go with the Stanford women, and that's also because of a recency bias. On last week's breakdown, I was like, I think the Texas women are going to show us that they deserve to be the number 2 women's team in the country ahead of Stanford. I was completely wrong. The Stanford women showed us that they might be able to contend to be the number 1 women's team in the country. I mean, they had a phenomenal weekend. They were racing at Texas versus Texas, among other teams. They swept the relays. And again, their NCAA champions, Tori Husk, Caroline Bricker, and Lucy Bell, looked phenomenal. So do I think that they can win this year? I think there's a chance. I wouldn't put money on it, and I wouldn't choose them to. But if UVA slips up, if they have a mistake, if they DQ a relay, which has happened before at NCAA, it's not, I don't think to UVA, but it's happened to other teams before. It's a possibility. Stanford could pounce. They're sprinting. They set school records in sprint relays, which again, this is the program that had Simone Manuel and Leah Neal and a bevy of other top tier sprint talent. And this team went faster than they did this weekend. So we're assuming they can be even faster. So they look really good. And if not this season, I believe they're losing Tori Husk after this year. But man, if they can if Chris Lindauer can keep this up, and they can have another really phenomenal season next year. Again, this year might be a possibility. Next year might be a possibility, but that'll be my prediction for now. So my way too early prediction based on recency bias. But anyway, that's our breakdown for today. Thanks so much for tuning in.